What's up, YouTube? Bobbles and Ball Cards back with another video. Hope you're all doing well out there. It is Tuesday, November 22nd. Before I get started, I want to give a huge shout out to Mrs. Bobbles. Thank her for everything she does for myself, the community, our kids, everything. Today is her birthday, and I hope that she's had a wonderful day. And if you all could do me a huge favor and let her know just how important she is to everything. I know she's mostly behind the scenes, but she loves this hobby just as much as I do. We have a lot of fun doing it together, and she tries to make sure all of you guys have a lot of fun as well. So anyway, with that, I want to talk about something that I've actually kind of had on my mind for a while, but I felt it was a good time to talk about it, not only with Thanksgiving being 2 days away, but there was a conversation that went on in the Discord today, and it was about like the future outlook of the hobby. It's talking about like, is cards investments and all of that sort of thing. And then I've also had a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but several people that have commented recently on some videos I've done and said, you know, everything's going to be okay. I can't wait till Fanatics comes in and takes over. They're going to fix everything and yada yada. And I've sat and questioned this because I don't know what Fanatics like taking over is really going to do. I mean, when we heard that Fanatics took the licenses from the sports and, you know, had the players' license as well, everybody freaked out. Like, we were like, oh no, Topps is gone, right? So we've had Topps for, 70 years as a brand that was a staple in this hobby for baseball cards. And then, taking the player license away, kind of, I don't know all of the rules, so I'm not going to try to get into technicalities here, but I would expect that means that we can't even have unlicensed products. So if Fanatics gives us crap, we have to either buy it or suffer, because we can't even get a substitute. Like Panini pajama cards, people may not like them, but they give us another option. Or, even Leaf and Brian Gray, he tosses out some autographs here and there of players that he's been able to get contracts for. And I don't know how all that's going to work if Fanatics takes over. But furthermore, I've sat and tried to figure out. So most folks in this hobby today, I would say, and basing off of like my analytics and what it shows for my audience and all of that, what I see at card shows, that sort of thing. There's a mixed age group, but for the most part, you have like your younger 20s crowd, then you have your middle crowd that grew up in the 80s and 90s, maybe the late 70s, and was way deep into cards. Then we grew a love for cards. And then you're going to have your older, 60 plus grouping that got to have all that fun with vintage when packs were a nickel a piece. So there's a diverse age range there. And then you'll have some kids sprinkled in here or there, whether they're into cards or whether they're just at the show with their parents. I don't know what the range there is. But then you have to split it down, and this is the part that we don't know. How many of them are just in it for money and, quote unquote, use this term lightly, investments, and how many of them are actually collecting? And before you say, oh, well, here we go again, another collector spilling the spiel of how collectors are holier than thou, that's not what I'm doing. But what I do want to do is share the sentiment that I don't think Fanatics is going to be this magic worker that's going to even 2x this hobby, let alone 5 or 10x like they have told us they wanted to do. I just don't think it's possible. I could be 100% wrong, but I feel like, and maybe I was just a naive kid, but I pulled this out right here, this March 92 Beckett magazine. I would have been almost 12 years old at the time. And looking back, thinking back on all of my friends in school, knowing there was 2 card shops in the single small town that I lived in. I mean, it wasn't even that big. and we had a card shop on both ends of town. Knowing the excitement of the Beckett coming out each month, um, just people would trade, at the bus stop or in the lunchroom or what have you. Just knowing the amount of people then in the 90s that was into cards, I don't know that we have came close, and I could be 100% wrong, but I don't know that we've ever came close to having that same passion, let alone that amount of audience that we had then. And for those that are claiming that Fanatics is going to change and fix everything, we had to have a freaking worldwide pandemic and some shenanigans behind the scenes to even get the folks in that came in over the past couple years. And most of those people were coming back because of the passion that they had in the 90s, but they also had boxes of cards stuck in their closet that they thought they might have $1 million in. And then you had the new folks that, started flipping and that sort of thing, and that's when the investment term started getting tossed around a little bit more. And the argument can be, it can be swung many different ways, whether cards are not an investment. It depends on how you look at them. It depends on how you use the definition of investment. There's so many. I'm not sitting here to tell you if they are or aren't. What I am going to sit here and tell you that this Beckett magazine gave us, it was both a blessing and a curse all at the same time. Because the blessing of it was this put a lot of passion to us as kids and why we loved sports cards so much. There was stories in there from other readers sharing, opening packs or their collections or whatever. There was stories about cards. There were stories about players. There was all sorts of stuff showing us cards from, back in the day to stuff that was releasing at that current time. They were sharing statistics and things that happened in games. All of that stuff was connecting us with the sports, with the players, with the cards. And then you had this section in the middle that was a price guide that came along with a hot and cold list. And we might go on there. And there was cards in this book that were printed at 8 cents. Could you imagine today someone going on eBay and actually looking up a card that they pulled from a pack and it being printed or like even sold on eBay for 8 cents? Could you imagine that? Because it was a different time. Now, granted, people are going to be like, yeah, but inflation and yeah, sure, okay, I get all that. But at the end of the day, these were still, it was in a time period where when you looked at vintage, you had cards listed for $25,000. And you also had 2 columns. It wasn't just, well, on eBay, it sold on November 19th for $300, so I want it for no more than $300, but yours isn't graded, and so it looks like this corner is soft, so now that means I only want it for $145. No, it was a left column, right column. You decided between yourselves of what you agreed upon, and that's how we traded, sold, bought, etc. Right? That was our transaction model. And it was also noted as a guide. It wasn't noted as this is the only price that you should pay for something. When people go by the comps, they're looking at what the last person paid for something. When we were collecting, it was how bad did we want that damn card. It wasn't, well, Billy Joe over in Arkansas paid $72 for it. I'm up here in Virginia. I don't really like the guy that much, but he paid $72, so I think if I pay $74 2 weeks from now, I might be able to sell it for $80. No, it was, I like this player. I want this card. I don't have it. I have this. My friend likes this player. Let's trade. Right? I might have to give him a little bit more if my player is worth more than the player that his was, or better performance, whatever. But that's how we did things. It wasn't just solely on comps, And that went with both buying, selling, trading, what have you. Now today it's more dictated on based upon numbers and figures, dollar amounts that the last man paid. And that's what we as buyers, sellers, traders, whatever, go off of whether we're buying or selling a card of what the last guy paid for it. Well, maybe the last guy just didn't like the person that much. I mean, there's many different elements to it. So I think a lot of the passion and the love has been drawn out, and I just don't see Fanatics being able to inject that much juice to get kids involved, to get other young adults or people my age flocking to, card stores, because there's one thing at the end of the day. Whether or not we are a collector, we understand that supply, demand, and values will dictate whether or not this market has an audience, whether or not this hobby has an audience. I don't even mean to say market because I hate talking about it as a market. Whether this hobby has an audience, the values will come into play with that. People can love, Julio Rodriguez or Luka Doncic or, Justin Herbert, but there's many other things out there today that can attach them to that player other than a Prism base card or a Prism Silver, especially when some of these cards people are wanting $1,000+ for. And, the guys I've named, they haven't really accomplished anything. I mean, Herbert's not made the playoffs. Julio Rodriguez got knocked out of the playoffs. He did win Rookie of the Year. And Luka Doncic has never made the finals or anything. So those three players, you're talking about some of your top three young players in these leagues today, and they're, some of their cards are $1,000. Back in the 90s, hell, it wasn't even the rookies that were the most valuable cards. It was the players that people liked. In this magazine right here, Frank Thomas, even in the 1992 sets, are selling for more than the rookie cards in many cases because he was the player that everybody wanted. So, it's different times. I get that. We have parallels now. We have serial numbers. We have patches. We have autographs. But the trends are going to continue. I think, and just a note, I'm not saying vintage is safe because even many vintage cards in this magazine are cheaper today to buy than they were priced in Beckett 30 years ago. Simply because they're easier to obtain now, so there's more supply of them. There's the grading aspect of things. All of that comes into play now. So I'm not sitting here to say that 1992 is to tell us how 2022 is going to be. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to be how 2052 is going to be. But I'm saying this magazine was very important in not only instrumenting the audience and the popularity of sports cards in the 90s, but without it, I don't know how that popularity can be gained just by Fanatics taking over. If people don't know, video games are highly popular, right? Kids aren't sitting around playing Madden or MLB The Show or NHL or NBA 2K. They might play 2K a bit, but for the most part, kids are playing Fortnite and Minecraft and stuff like that. They're not even on playing that many sports games. And if they are playing more of them, or if there's a way to cater to them, MLB The Show has Fanatics ads, it has Topps ads, it has Bowman ads, and it also has the aspects of where you can play Diamond Dynasty and collect the cards and build your team and everything. But you don't hear many people talk about it. So, I just don't know what magic that Fanatics would have up their sleeve. Also, keep in mind, there's a lot of talk going on over in the Magic the Gathering community. I've heard people talk about it. I went and checked out Rudy Alpha Investments videos. From what I gather, and please do understand, I'm not trying to sit here and say I know everything, but from what I'm gathering is Hasbro is pretty much ruining that brand. Ruining Magic the Gathering. Why? Well, because they're about money. What do you think Fanatics is going to be about? Do you think Fanatics really is worried about us and our collections? I would argue no. They're worried about how much money they can pull in. They bought this. They took over these licensing for the simple purpose of making money. So sure, do they want the hobby to grow? Likely. But I just don't think it's that easy. So, anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday evening. If I don't talk to you again before Thanksgiving, please have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Sit down, grab a box of cards, go through it, keep it simple, be thankful, and share below like 3 cards that they don't even have to be worth a dime, right? Share with me 3 cards in the comments section that you find in a random box of cards you have that you haven't looked through in a while. And be thankful for your collection. But that's all I got for you guys. Hope you enjoyed. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and until the next video, I'm out.